Johnny Depp, the impossible love that changed everything. Hollywood has seen its fair share of love stories, grand, passionate, chaotic, and sometimes tragic. But few have stirred the imagination of millions quite like the quiet, almost mythical romance that now surrounds Johnny Depp. The actor, known for his brooding charm and poetic mystery, has lived through decades of public fascination, from his wild youth in the 90s to his stormy trials and reclusive years in the south of France. Yet in 2025, whispers have emerged of something entirely new, a love that was never supposed to happen. A love that seemed impossible. A love that, by all accounts, has changed Johnny Depp forever. A man who stood alone for years, Johnny Depp's story was one of solitude. After the chaos of courtrooms, rumors, heartbreaks, and the long shadow of public scrutiny, the actor withdrew into a quieter existence. His life became defined by music, painting, and his small circle of loyal friends. He had often been spotted in Europe, sometimes in Paris, cafes sketching, sometimes in London, quietly walking out of a small jazz bar after midnight. He seemed content yet distant, a man who had made peace with his ghosts but had little left to expect from love. Friends described him as at peace, but guarded. He smiled, but his eyes carried something of a storm. The world had seen Johnny Depp the actor, the musician, the artist, but the man behind the eyes, they said, was still healing. Johnny wasn't looking for love, one insider told the Hollywood Ledger. He didn't even believe in the word anymore. And yet life, unpredictable, ironic, and endlessly poetic, had other plans. The unlikely encounter had happened, as such stories often do, by accident. Not at a red carpet, not at a film set, but somewhere much quieter. Sources close to Depp hint that the meeting took place in Italy, during a small art retreat where musicians, writers, and painters gathered under one roof to celebrate creativity away from cameras. She was there too, the mysterious woman whose name remains unspoken. Not an actress, not a public figure, but someone from the world of literature and art. Her reputation was built not on fame but on her words, her empathy, and her intellect. Those who saw them together described their first meeting as magnetic. She wasn't starstruck. She didn't see Captain Jack Sparrow or Edward Scissorhands or the Hollywood legend. She simply saw Johnny. And for a man who had spent years being treated as an icon or an idea, being seen as human again was something extraordinary. She made him laugh in a way I haven't seen in years, said one musician who attended the retreat. It wasn't forced or flirtatious, it was real. The impossible connection. They couldn't have been more different, or more alike. She came from a life of silence and subtlety. He came from a life lived in flashes of lightning and thunder. Yet somewhere between the contrast, something unexpected blossomed. At first it was friendship. Late-night conversations about poetry and pain, art and forgiveness, music and memory. She challenged him, gently but fearlessly. She asked about the man, not the myth. She told him the truth when others only offered comfort. She didn't try to heal him, says another friend, but somehow her presence did. There were obstacles, oceans, time zones, the impossibility of privacy. She wasn't someone who chased fame, and he wasn't a man eager to drag someone he cared for into the fire of Hollywood speculation. Yet as months passed, what began as something delicate turned into something powerful, something neither of them could deny. Letters and quiet confessions. Johnny has always been a writer of letters. During his early career, he wrote long notes to his friends and family. Poetic, sometimes cryptic, filled with sketches and lines of music. Sources close to him revealed that he began writing again. She received letters from him handwritten, one insider whispered. They weren't romantic in the conventional way. They were deep, soulful, filled with gratitude, hope, and humor. It was like reading fragments of his heart. In one letter, he reportedly wrote, "You came into my life not like a storm, but like a candle, small, steady, and bright enough to make me remember what warmth feels like." It wasn't love at first sight. It was love that grew from trust, from understanding, from two souls who had both seen darkness yet refused to surrender to it. The world begins to whisper by early 2025. Whispers began surfacing online. Fans noticed changes, small ones at first. Depp seemed lighter in interviews. His laughter was more frequent, his words gentler. He appeared at art exhibitions and small music events again, often smiling without that old, weary sadness. He spoke of new beginnings and finding peace in unexpected places. When asked in one interview if he believed in love again, Johnny paused, looked down, and with a faint smile said, "Sometimes the things you stop searching for have a strange way of finding you." That one line was enough to send fans and media into a frenzy. Who was she? Was she a muse? A writer, a friend, or something more? Her silence, his respect. What makes this story even more extraordinary is the silence that surrounds it. She has never spoken to the press, never posted cryptic messages online, never used the connection for attention or career. In a world where celebrity relationships often turn into spectacles, their story became something rare, sacred, almost old-fashioned. Johnny, too, refused to name her, protecting her privacy fiercely. He has seen what public love can destroy, and this time he guarded it like treasure. Insiders say that this very silence deepened the bond between them. It wasn't about publicity. It wasn't about proving anything. It was about being real, away from the noise. She's his calm, a close friend said, and he's her fire. A love that heals. The impact of this love on Johnny's life has been undeniable. Those close to him say he's writing again, painting with more emotion, and even composing new songs that are more hopeful than ever before. He has begun performing more often, collaborating with old friends in small venues, something he hadn't done in years. His energy feels renewed, his outlook softer. She reminded him that life isn't about the scars, says one friend. It's about what you do with them. For a man who had lived through public trials and heartbreaks, finding someone who saw his scars as part of his beauty, not his shame, was transformative. She taught him that forgiveness is a kind of love too, a longtime associate revealed. And that loving again doesn't mean forgetting the past. It means trusting the future. The poetic irony, it's poetic really, that one of Hollywood's most iconic romantics would find his truest romance far away from the screen. For decades, Johnny Depp played characters who loved too deeply, too dangerously, from Edward Scissorhands, who could never touch what he loved, to Jack Sparrow, who sailed the seas searching for freedom but never peace. And now it seems, life has written him the kind of love story that no script could have predicted. Imperfect, improbable, yet profoundly human. She doesn't complete him, a source said softly. She grounds him. What makes it impossible, the world calls it impossible because it shouldn't have worked. They come from different worlds, different rhythms of life, and yet they've built something that exists quietly between them. She isn't dazzled by fame, and he isn't afraid of vulnerability anymore. They live parallel lives but meet in the middle through letters, art, and rare stolen weekends. It's the kind of connection that doesn't need constant validation. It simply is. It's not about possession, Johnny once hinted in an interview. It's about presence. When you meet someone whose soul feels familiar, you stop keeping score of what's real and what's dream. The influence on his art observers have noticed how this love has bled into his artistic life. His recent sketches, now exhibited in a private gallery in London, feature recurring imagery, candlelight, open windows, and two figures sitting opposite each other at a table, surrounded by pages of unwritten poetry. Critics describe them as intimate, reflective, and redemptive. His music, too, has changed. One of his new songs, reportedly titled The Impossible Kind, speaks of a love that walked through walls built from silence. Lyrics from an early preview include, "You were the echo I never expected, the calm in the chaos I'd long neglected. I thought love was gone, buried and blind, but you were the impossible kind." It's not hard to imagine who inspired those words. Friends speak out, close. Friends and collaborators have noticed a transformation not just in his art, but in his spirit. "Johnny's eyes used to carry this weight," said a longtime musician friend. "Now they sparkle again. It's like someone turned the light back on." Another friend described how he now spends hours in his studio, painting or writing, often smiling to himself. He talks about gratitude a lot, they said. He says he's learning how to live, not just survive. One particularly moving comment came from a fellow artist who shared, "For the first time in years, Johnny isn't haunted by what happened. He's inspired by what's happening." The message to the world in an era where relationships are flaunted for followers and fame. Johnny Depp's impossible love story reminds the world of something timeless, that love doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes it's the quiet connections, the letters written by hand, the glances across a crowded room that define us most deeply. He has always been a romantic, but now he seems to be a wiser one. His words these days aren't about grand declarations, but about peace, gratitude, and second chances. When asked recently what he's learned about love, he replied with a smile that the heart doesn't retire. It just waits for the right reason to begin again. The future of this love, will the world ever know her name? Perhaps not, and maybe that's the beauty of it. Some love stories are meant to be whispered, not shouted. For Johnny, this chapter isn't about public validation. It's about rediscovery and of himself, of art, and of the idea that love can exist without chaos. Those close to him believe that he has found not only a partner, but a muse, someone who reminds him that beauty can emerge from brokenness. He doesn't need to prove anything anymore, a friend said. He's simply living, and that's the miracle. Friends, subscribe the channel and wish you good luck. Take care yourself.